Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. We're back, just like a bad debt. We're back again. We hadn't had a show for a few weeks, but here we are, and we've got a great guest, our friend, Mike. Mike and I have known each other for many, many years, ex-truck drivers, both veterans, so we have a lot in common. And
except you're the ex-truck driver, not me.
You know, oh, that's right. That's right. That's like when I told my producer, I said, we're not professionals here, and he said, well, you speak for yourself. I forgot, he is. But
I'm on hiatus now, so I can actually enjoy a little bit from time to time, but I'm going to have to dry out again because come the end of September, I'll be back on the road for the winter.
I've always said I'm a professional driver. It doesn't mean I'm any good. It just means I make a living out of it.
I get paid for it. That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So well, so how's it out there? They quit drug testing out?
Oh no! They'll never do that. That's a big thriving business. The insurance companies still like it. You do run into certain companies that, even though they require the drivers to be drug tested for pre-employment, and then if there's ever a suspicion, the other people that work for the company don't have subjects to the drug test anymore because these are national companies who do business in 11 states now where there's legal marijuana, and there's another 30 some odd states that also have the medical. So it's hard enough for people, employers, to keep good qualified people. And they're finding out that, we don't really need to do these drug testing because they can tell your performance at work. You work in a distribution center and everything is barcoded. So they know, a computer knows how fast and how accurate all these little pieces move, so it ends up in the back of my truck. Right? So they can tell because you're required to put your number as an employee, that you picked that part, the time that you picked that part, and then the guy who puts it in the truck is going to put his name on it. So they have all those stats that once a week they release them and they show we had a 98 point so-and-so accuracy rate. Right? So they're not putting wrong parts in this kind of thing. So, but I won't name the company, but a lot of these national companies who do have the drug-free culture are kind of quietly just saying, well, it is legal. And I'm hoping someday that some truck driver or maybe some pilot or somebody who's still having to face drug testing will push the limit, because they know when you're inebriated now. They can sit there and a cop can say, okay, here's blood tests. They can simply tell if you are under the influence. Okay, most truck companies just still test for presence, which is 0.2. All right. And I'm thinking, well, the general public can drive and consume cannabis. Why can't a professional driver do the same? When all the ambiguity is now missing from the equation, is that driver under the influence, when now we know here in the year 2019 of when that driver is. So, but I'm really thinking it's going to take a lawsuit to push the issue.
I would be surprised.
Because the industry, trucking, they can't get a good enough drivers. The biggest problem that the schools have with truck drivers now is getting their English skills up to par. You go up to Washington and half the class is Russian.
Wow.
They can drive. I mean, they love American trucks after what they've been driving over there.
Yeah.
Nice freeways and a little bit more, room and space for everybody out there. But they can't keep enough drivers out there.
Well, yeah, I know those had a shortage driver. I've always said that there's no driver shortage. There's only a shortage of drivers that are willing to put up with the bullshit.
Well, the reason you make so much money is you work a 70-hour week.
Oh yeah.
So if you sit there and do nothing but work 10, 12-hour days, you'll make a lot of money. That's that $1,000 week.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So.
Well, I remember, and then drug testing. I remember been years ago that I came across a story that said that drug testing, more and more companies were dropping drug testing because they found that it wasn't cost effective. They looked at how much money they were actually spending on drug testing, and then it was not paying back. So a lot of them were still act like they drug test just to put up the appearance, but they didn't really. And that's the same thing with Harry and David. I went to work for Harry and David seasonally, and they kept saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to drug test, we're going to drug test." I got to thinking about it. I thought, no, they hire 600 people for 6 weeks of work. They're not going to drug test 600 people for 6 weeks of work.
They're just going to keep the people that probably do have drug problems, hopefully, away from even applying.
Yeah.
Because I've been, even trucking jobs, I was hauling ice up in Washington a couple of years ago, and they said, okay, we're drug-free, and of course I had to admit my cookie felony from years ago, but I was never drug tested. I worked there for almost 6 months, and I never took a drug test.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known what I know now, but anyhow, I think they're just like what you're saying, there's no reason to test this guy because he shows up for work, he does his job the way we'd like him to. Why spend the extra, $150 to send me away during the work hours to go take a test? It's going to cost them $100, and they already know the answer, right? I mean, because generally, I don't want to have that be a reason as to why I, may have been involved in an accident. So even though everybody that I drive for now has dash cams on their trucks, right? I just go ahead and just abstain from getting high just to prove a point, that hey, I'm not a drug addict. So-and-so. I think that, I will be vocal about my opposition to this whole thing about drug testing and about my ability to drive if I'm suspected under the influence.
The worst thing about being a drug driver, as far as drug testing, is if you get into an accident, whether it's an injury of anybody, it's automatic drug test for the truck driver, and then you could be found positive, and even though you weren't anywhere near fault, if you were positive to the drug test, you're going down. You're
You're the scapegoat.
Yeah.
That's why I say, I'm not going to give them, any opportunity for that. Currently, I've got a good license. I've never had a, bit of a trouble with it, and I'm not going to let them say, oh, see, he was under the influence while he was working driving. That would pretty much.
And like you mentioned, there's been studies now, and I can't quote them, but I know there's been studies that show that that cannabis doesn't have doesn't impair like they said it does.
It really doesn't. I mean, I could think of many instances years and years ago that, well, I don't know what the statute of limitation is, but I never had any trouble driving stoned. I just slowed down. Took it easy. I mean, you see people that, when I was working up in Seattle, I just moved back down to Eugene now, but I was driving in the Seattle metro area, and you see big vape clouds all the time in traffic, and I'm sitting here wondering how many of those vape clouds are cannabis. People getting high in their cars as we sit stuck in traffic, where it takes you an hour to go 5 miles. And you see these big old white cloud coming out of the car. Wonder if it's mint flavor or little Northern Lights.
Well, we used to say, "Get right for the flight." So.
Yeah.
And then there's it'll be interesting if they start permitting transportation across state lines. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. In other words, our state has a surplus of medicine and other states don't, but they're legal in both states, so they're trying to get it to where they can transport across state lines, and they can't right now. So I think things are coming. It's just coming awfully slow, but things are improving and they're happening. More and more states. We've got an article in here about Nevada, Hawaii. Hawaii just decriminalized marijuana. And Hawaii was the first state to get a medical program through the legislature. It wasn't an initiative. That was the first state to do that. And so
still
still
can be a criminal act until just recent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that it is taking far too long.
Definitely.
For this to be.
And then this is the stories I picked up. This was the normal.org website, and it's about Oregon. It says the governor signs a law prohibiting landlords from discriminating against medical marijuana patients. Democratic Governor Kate Brown has signed legislation, Senate Bill 970, prohibiting landlords from taking discriminatory action against those who either use medical cannabis or possess cannabis-related convictions. The measure states that a landlord may not take into consideration an applicant's status as a medical marijuana patient or whether they have a conviction based solely on the use or possession of marijuana. The new law takes effect July 1st, 2020. So that's a move in the right direction, and it's welcomed, you know. I've always said when it comes to Kate Brown, I can hold my nose, but I voted for her.
I don't know much about her. I come from Washington, where we got Jay Inslee, and Jay Inslee back in the day would, when he was a congressman, when we used to do Seattle Hemp Fest, which I guess they still do, would actually show up and speak at our rallies.
Wow.
And so he was a good supporter for cannabis in the early days. I mean, it was already medical,
Right.
but he was kind of part of the solution of trying to get a working model that could actually serve patients in Washington, because for a lot of years they say, well, yeah, patients can have this and use this, but good luck getting it. You know, and then they realized just the sheer scale of what Seattle had at the time as far as a patient network. You know, some of the houses that operated legally would be illegal next week, depending on which way the wind blows.
If I remember correctly, Washington still does not have a personal grow law, right?
If you have your medical, then yeah, you can still grow.
Okay.
It's limited to the number of plants you can have, but you can still grow.
Yeah, okay.
But you can't go to Washington now, get a medical, and grow. But if you were grandfathered before all this, yeah, you could still. I don't know that's similar here in Oregon, but they couldn't get away with taking away what you could do before. They just tried to get rid of the co-ops that had kind of sprung in the early days, you know, where that's the way they could meet the demand. You got a co-op of growers, you get a co-op of people who could, you know, make the medibles and other things that were needed for different patient use. But now it's all, you know, above board and collectively a real mess in Washington. Here I was amazed at how many outlets I saw where you can buy weed.
Oh, yeah.
Up where I live, you don't see them every corner like you do here.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. And they keep coming. It's like Walgreens, you know, like one popping up in every corner. It's just,
Well, Washington, it's a lottery. You know, not everybody with, if I had the money, I could sit there and just say, throw it down, okay, I want to open me a store. Can't do that in Washington. You got to wait your turn to see if you can get one of the coveted slots. So they're going really slow. But this was after about 4 years ago when they just took all the liquor sales out of the state's control, and now you can buy booze everywhere. You can go to Albertsons, you can go to Safeway, you can even go to a convenience store and buy that tequila.
oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
And they told everybody that liquor would be cheaper. And so when you go into a store, you see a fifth of booze, and it'll say like 17 or 18 bucks. I don't drink, so I don't know if that's accurate. But I do know that when you get to the cash register, it's $35. Because they don't print the tax on the shelf. You don't know what the full price is until you get up there and they ring it up and boom. It's $35 today, sir. Basically, you know, half the price of that is tax.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, well, I'm glad. That's stupid juice. I don't drink that stuff, so.
Yeah, I kind of picked it up again just because I can't smoke cannabis at all when I'm driving a truck. So when I want to just kind of relax and take the edge off this nutty world we live in, yeah, a little tequila.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I always said, they say don't mix your drugs. I always said, you got to know how to mix them. So we got to wrap this up, and the first half just flew by, so we got to get ready for the second half. So we'll be right back, so stick around.
Do you suffer from fear of losing your election? Are you terrified that voters will discover you've done nothing to improve their lives? Maybe it's time you talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex. In clinical trials, Incarcerex has been shown effective at reducing election-related anxieties by making voters think you're doing something about the drug problem. It's simplistic and fast-acting. If your problems continue or get worse, you can always double or triple your dose of Incarcerex. Whether it's addiction, therapeutic use, or just casual use, there's an Incarcerex plan for every American. Best of all, taxpayers, not you, will foot the bill. So talk to your spin doctor about Incarcerex today. Common side effects include loss of civil liberties, police corruption, racial injustice, increased terrorism, spread of HIV and AIDS, and violent crime. Bloated prisons are also a common side effect. Stop taking Incarcerex if bloating lasts longer than 20 years. If you're trying to balance the budget, keep families together, or protect human rights, Incarcerex may not be right for you. Do not mix Incarcerex with the Constitution or common sense. So start taking Incarcerex and keep pretending you're doing something about the drug problem.
Welcome back to the second half to the Eugene Cannabis TV show, number 712, and we got our friend Mike back again. Mike is a truck driver, and met Mike on the road when I was a truck driver, and see, I got that straight, and Mike's still doing it, so that way I can find out what's going on and finger on the pulse of
trucking America.
Trucking, yeah. Yeah, I myself have a lot of stories to tell about drivers I met on the road through smoke. I met some incredible people through smoke, and we have an incredible nation, and there's some
well, I think that's how
good
we
people,
met.
man. Yes,
now that I think about it,
it is.
We both had a bunch of laminated beams on there.
Yeah.
Bruce's truck stopped there in Baker, a sticker patch.
Yeah.
Right?
And turned out we met the night before our delivery day, our deliveries, and then it turned out we ended up on the same site. We were going to the same place. I think we even knew it until we showed up together.
And we also had that other connection of where we picked up our weekly cannabis. Was the same guy.
Yeah, and if I remember, I think I gave you a jump that day too, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I had a bad start. I used to have to get the screwdriver out and kind of arc the back of the starter to get it to just make sure the truck was out of gear when I stood in front of that front tire with the long screwdriver to start my truck.
When you drive an old truck, you gain a lot of mechanical experience. You got survival, trying to get home again, you know. The job that I learned the most at was the job that I had the worst trucks. I learned more from driving that company than I did in all my other ones, I think. But anyway, so sometimes I miss driving, not a lot, but once in a while. I mean, it's a good part, you know.
I've always enjoyed driving big trucks.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, and now the big push is automatics.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody now.
I remember you telling me that.
Well, in Oregon and Washington, California, you can actually get a restriction on your CDL that says you can only drive automatics. Pushing through so many people that can't shift a truck.
Yeah.
You know, they've gone to 18 speeds now, which basically is a 13 speed, but you split the bottom two, right? Because you've got shorter legs. You're running down, when you're in the lower half of that, you're running 1,200 to 1,500 RPM, then you're shifting at 1,500. I remember back in the day we were shifting at 2,000, 2,100. Right now it's all lower, but then you get in the high range, and then you're driving up 16 to 1,900 as you're shifting up there. So they're a little bit different, but you've got engines that got 600 horses under the hood, and all this electronics, and now they've got the DEF and this other stuff on there that means that you've got probably 50 or 60 sensors in different parts of these engines that basically measure all the ambient air, pressure, everything that you can consider, and meter the fuel as exactly as they can. But you'll get a new truck, and the guy that I was driving for had a brand new Cummins. It took him 6.5 months to get the bugs out of it. It had so many bad pieces in it when they built it, right? They just had to replace the sensor after sensor after sensor.
Wow.
Because they had all these new features to try to get that fuel mileage from 5 to 7 without any input from the driver. They do it all with this fancy electronics. Wow. That's nuts. It's really nuts. I mean, a brand new truck, $200,000.
I had a friend of mine that worked at a driving school, truck driving school, and I remember him telling me one time, he said, some of those people, because the government sends a lot of people through the driving school because they're trying to get people off of welfare, and truck driving school is a lot less than college, and trying to get them to work, so he said that a lot of people coming through there will never make it as a truck driver. They may even graduate, but they'll never make it as a truck driver.
I was going to say, they'll graduate.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to hire them because you don't get paid unless you graduate.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's like, and I remember you told me, or I told you about it, I had a neighbor one time who was on welfare, and he went through the school, and he come over to my house, and he says, I'm getting ready to go over the pass, and looking to get a job, but I just got a front wheel drive car, and I can't remember, do I chain up the rear axle or the front?
Hire him.
Mike said, I hope you told him the rear. But yeah, so there's some drivers out there that are make you a little nervous, but it's kind of a grab bag. You never know.
There's a lot of drivers out there that make me nervous. You get guys out on these interstates that there's a lot of companies, bigger truck companies, and they just, back in our day, but they put a governor on these engines. You can't go faster than maybe 64, 65 mile an hour. You can going downhill, you can't get that thing to go any faster.
Right.
It'll just bog out.
Yeah.
But you see these guys will get over in the left lane, only 2 lanes on the interstate, and it'll take them 3.5 miles to pass a car, pass another truck rather.
Right. Oh yeah.
And you see them do it on the hills. You see them do it, without any care in the world as to who else is out on the highway with them. And I remember when I learned how to drive back in the 70s, you were supposed to be courteous to the four-wheeler. Because you've got that big old name on the door, and if you're really unlucky, you've got the 1-800-FIRE-THE-DRIVER number to go with it. And now with cell phones, I mean, when I was driving for this one company in Seattle, I took it as a point of honor to get at least one phone call a week. Somebody I probably pulled in front of because they're doing Mario Andretti, and I can't move my head fast enough to clear my lanes. Because if you give somebody an inch, they'll take a mile in Seattle. So.
Yeah, it's like when I was in the Army driving the PX system, they had there's a driver, we were part-time working the PX system, and he had a carload of kids that kept harassing him on the freeway. Pass him and then slow down, and he'd have to pass them, and they did that twice. And so when they did it the third time, he says, when I passed them, I was just right beside him. He says, I just turned on my right turn signal and changed lanes. The last time I saw them, they're doing about 60 out across the cornfield. You don't want to mess with a truck driver, I guess. Well, German truck drivers are even worse. So.
I was going to say that one thing I've known about truck drivers is they're like fishermen sometimes.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You'll hear some tall tales.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. I was you hear drivers talking on the CB. I'm going to try that dispatch, and I'm going to straighten his butt out. Rah, 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 rah. And then you go in the truck stop, and you hear these drivers sitting at the phone talking. Yes, okay, yes, I will, okay, yes, yes, okay, I will, okay, yep, yes. I bet they're the same people.
Well, the nice thing now is that, for one thing, nobody is really on CB radios anymore.
I know.
But the other thing is everything's electronic.
Yeah.
So your dispatch will be electronic.
Oh yeah.
You've got these little.
Don't have to call in so often anymore. I guess.
You don't call in at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was driving dedicated runs, so I knew I was going to this, and I was going to go here, and I was going to come back here. I didn't have to really worry about backhaul or anything like that. But it was still, I wouldn't know exactly where I was going until I pushed the magic button, and then there it is. That's my next line. It's all set up. You don't have to call anybody. Your bosses, there's cell phones, but you never talk to them.
The bad thing is you can't lie to dispatch and fudge.
Well, there's ways to fudge your electronic logs, but at the end of the day, fraud's fraud.
Yeah, but plus a lot of they're satellite. I mean, they know where you are within 3 feet or something like that.
Well, it all depends, but I think you can go for about 1/4 of a mile before the thing actually realizes that you're moving. Because there's one thing that you can do. The companies that I work with don't do this, but if you exceed your time, you're on duty time, that truck will shut off, and you'll get a warning. You got 15 minutes to find a place to park.
I've heard that. I can't even imagine that. But wow, that sounds like a safety hazard.
It can be. There is a workaround. If you get caught out and you don't want to be in a dangerous position, you can dial in a number and get moved. But if it's more than 5 miles, you're in a big load of hurt. The DOT will allow you a little bit of a wiggle room, usually for weather. You can sit there and get off schedule really easy in the wintertime. Or you got shippers that are just having a bad day and you get stuck there for 2 extra hours, and so if you're on a regular route, that might put you past their little buffer that they have in there. They figure, okay, this pays for 8 hours. If you do it in 6, great. But sometimes it takes 10 because of various things that happen.
Yeah. So you see, okay, so pre-employment is the only really drug testing they're doing nowadays, right? Is that what you're saying?
The only time I get the jar is when I'm going through the background check, which is a lot of fun these days. They always ask me about the cookie conviction. I say, yeah, it was cookies. I know it's a 30-year indictment, but it really was cookies. Read the bill of discovery, and they just kind of giggle about it. And it's a non-issue, really.
Right, oh yeah.
The biggest problem I ever had with getting back into the professions was when I had to admit that I took Paxil at a drug treatment place. Well, that kind of lost me my ability to fly, because that's a drug that the FAA and flight surgeons say is a no-no. You can't use that. You might as well go out and start eating acid and then come back and say, yeah, Mr. FAA, I took some LSD, but I'm okay now. Same thing. You know, you say, I took Paxil, I took Prozac, I took one of these brain drugs that they give out there to rewire your head. No, we don't want those guys in airplanes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because they really don't know long-term effects of that stuff. You know, so yeah, you beat the marijuana, but now you're, you know, taking experimental drugs, and they won't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, that's wow. Yeah, yeah, a lot different out there. But you know, when I talk to drivers, it's still just as bad as it always was. The bad parts are still just as bad, not worse, a lot of ways.
Well,
but,
it
parking
is.
for one.
Well,
truck
yeah,
stops.
that's nuts. Don't. I'm not going to be driving cross country. I won't need to worry about that. You know, but the thing that is better about it, which is the only thing, is that just about everybody pays by the hour. Okay, no more paying by the load, which is how we made a lot of our money back in the day. I remember we used to go from Philomath to Toledo and back $25. And you know, if you didn't do it, you know, fast enough, you're out there making $7 an hour. You know, it's when you're making about $14 an hour. I mean, I realized I was back in the 80s. But you remember when I was hauling for, you know, Pacific Coast Trucking out of Philomath.
Oh yeah, running chips.
Running chips 4 times over.
You've been on the highway since they improved it?
Yeah, I have. It's not even any fun anymore. Back when I did it, we had guardrail and a whole bunch of turns.
Man.
You didn't want to meet anybody in the wrong lane.
No.
Because I drug
blind, two main corners.
And here you got some guy right on that double yellow line, and if you inch over maybe half a foot, you're going to drag your trailer tire into the rock on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Because there's a hillside right there.
Yeah.
I had my boss say, well, just hit him. Like, oh, but it was a woman and a small child. I can't run them over. I'd rather tear up a tire. But yeah, he almost fired me over that. Seriously.
Yeah, it was. I know. I've driven the road myself, and I was just, my God, that place, that's nuts. It's not as bad as some of the stuff you see on TV with some of the roads around the world, you know. But
yeah.
So, okay. So anyway, yeah, we've talking about trucking again, and I always enjoy that. So,